So over the last few days, weeks, as you know, I've been in East Africa, traveling through Tanzania, Rwanda and Kenya for the last 7 weeks. It's been absolutely hectic, but so great because I received so many insights. I met with government offices across the board. I met with private businesses, and I met with the Office for Business Registration and Can Invest here in Nairobi. Can Invest is your entity for business and investment here in Kenya. And I think it is very important that we acknowledge and recognize the fact that the government of Kenya has put in tremendous effort in regards to increasing the ease of doing business here in Kenya. So let me explain. Over the last few years, Kenya was ranking number 120 among 189 or something countries across the world when it comes to ease of doing business. So not a very good ranking, but quite typical for a lot of African countries. Now, over the last few years, the government of Kenya has managed to really simplify and fasten up business processes, which means that Kenya has managed now to jump from place 120 something to place number 61 in 2019 in regards to ease of doing business in the world. So that means that Kenya is now ranking, before countries like Oman, India, or even Luxembourg. And I think that's absolutely incredible. And when we are looking into the ease of doing business here in Africa, then the top 2 countries are Mauritius and Rwanda, and then we have a North African country, Morocco, but Kenya is now following in place number 4, and actually when it comes to sub-Saharan Africa, it is ranking number 3, which is absolutely incredible. So that means that business processes won't take you as long, they're not as restrictive, and that's very, very important to understand if you want to start business in Africa or invest here. In fact, it is an important success strategy. And let me actually just sit down. It's a very important success strategy, especially if you're doing business on the continent for the first time or you want to invest here, because the ease of doing business is also an indicator as to how much risk there is to start any operations or investments in Africa. So those of you who have followed me for a while, you know that I take it very, very serious when it comes to being strategic about your businesses in Africa or your investments. Don't make any emotional decisions in regard to your partners in Africa, in regard even to the markets you choose in Africa. Be intentional about it, especially when you're starting out in Africa for the very first time. And one of the strategies that I've always been teaching is that you should start with markets that are relatively easy, so where risk is low but opportunity is high, and I call them low risk, high opportunity markets. So what has been a high level of concern here in the country for anyone doing business or investing in Kenya has been the high level of corruption. And of course, that is still happening, especially in certain industries. And I believe efforts are underway to really cut down on that as well. But what we can now see at least is a very improved process when it comes to things like business registrations, licensing, opening your bank account, transferring money, all these kinds of indicators that are going into the list of ease of doing business. There's a set range of indicators for each country. And now that Kenya is ranking number 4 in Africa and number 3 in sub-Saharan Africa, it is at the top of the list, and it has to be at your top of the list. So let me share a few concrete examples. So first of all, I met with the business registration office, and actually not anyone in the office, but with the director of business registrations here in Kenya. And he has confirmed that it is now very, very simple to do business in Kenya. You can register your company from anywhere in the world. You can go online, it doesn't matter what nationality you are, and you will receive a business license within 24 hours. Now that is worth taking notice of, especially in Africa. And Rwanda has always been praised when it comes to ease of doing business, and quite rightly so. But now we have to take notice that Kenya is really right there in this regard as well, when it comes to certain parameters such as registering your business. Now, I also noticed the entrance here in Kenya has been made so much easier and faster. So you could, over the last few years, get your visa at the airport, which was great. But it was still quite long in terms of, filling out the forms and waiting process and so on. And let me tell you, I came from Europe into Mombasa, and it took me literally less than a minute, and I got the visa. And I really, really noticed, so I was like, are you done? And he's like, yep, done, And I was like, oh, wow. That was even faster than in Rwanda, because in Rwanda it may take you 2 to 3 minutes. Well, that's obviously, a little bit of a subjective experience here, and I just want to say it is very, very fast. Whereas when I was in Tanzania and I traveled into Tanzania, yes, you could get there a visa upon arrival too. But let me tell you, dear government of Tanzania, that's something you have to improve, because I think it took me about 40 minutes and I saw about 5 different people, all nicely queued up, fine. The people were, all in different offices, and it says, okay, you go to the next and the next and the next. And then you had to hand in your passport, and they take your passport, and then they emerge again. And I think the whole process took me about 40 minutes. So that is not what I call ease of doing business when you want to, go into Tanzania. And of course, you have a lot of these challenges across Africa as well. But I noticed that it became much easier to do that in Kenya. And I still have to let you know that I have not looked into all single aspects in regard to licenses and processes, and I know that some of you may have more experiences of that if you are on the ground. But hey, we have to notice that things have improved incredibly here in Kenya. I was here in the country for the first time 5 years ago. I can see the differences, I can feel them, and they have been confirmed to me by people in government offices. And not only that, the world has noticed, because now Kenya is at ranking number 61 worldwide. It is before some of the European countries, before some of the fast-growing Asian countries, before some of the fast-growing Arab countries, and I think that is great. And so, be aware of the strategy to choose markets in Africa that make it easy for you. And yes, I really believe that we should be selective, because guess what? Other African governments will notice. It will trickle down. And I truly, truly believe that this is not about comparing in regards to saying that, oh yes, one country is so much better. No, it's not about that at all. It is about learning the best practices among African countries, so other African countries can notice, or governments rather, can notice and take on board best practices that they can learn from other African countries who have walked the talk. And it is about that. It's improving our continent. And I think for us, when we go into Africa, especially for the first time, or if we want to expand our businesses, it is so important that we are not doing so, emotionally, or that we are making uninformed decisions. Let's make informed decisions. Put Kenya right there at top of your list. It is the gateway to East Africa. It is an amazing, country. Nairobi is a cosmopolitan city. Seriously, I think you can't get that in many other places here on the continent. It's a very cosmopolitan city that one can set right there at the world stage. And any kind of business you want to do here, be it in agribusiness or ICT, tourism, real estate, finance, Kenya is a place to be and to compete with your business. So I'll share more insights in my next video. And oh yes, by the way, if you have not signed up yet to the notifications for my new program, which is Africa Business Missions Online, where we cover several countries and where you have the opportunity to get access to government officials and real opportunities in regards to business and investments, then sign up below